Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you as always from Germany. Today is Sunday, it's the 9th of June 2019, and I am so glad that you're joining me today to talk about some knitting, some yarn, some spinning, some yarn dyeing, and some acquisitions that I have somehow acquired throughout the last week or so. Oh my gosh, you guys, I have literally recorded this intro 6 times and I cannot seem to do it. I am about to lose my mind. I don't know why I can't talk straight anymore, but apparently it's a thing. Possibly because of too much coffee, and no, that is not stopping me from having more coffee, because why would it? That would make sense, right? Anyways, so I have just literally deleted 6 videos from my phone because I just couldn't do it, and I decided to start again. And whatever just tumbles out of my mouth now will become this week's podcast, and I hope that it will make some kind of sense. We will see how it goes. I don't know why I'm so energetic today, and my thoughts are going all over the place, and apparently that's not a good space to be in to podcast. Anyhow, let's talk about some knitting. So today I have, like I said, some knitting to share with you. I have some spinning to talk about. I have been dyeing with avocado, which has been incredibly interesting. So I will tell you all about that towards the end. And then I have also bought quite a bit of yarn, which I will show you with no shame. All right. Let's talk about some whips, because I don't have any finished objects. It feels weird not to have any finished objects, but I feel like I've been doing a lot of different things at the same time, and that has just meant that nothing has gotten finished, obviously. Anyhow, my first work in progress I'm just going to show you very quickly because it's not incredibly interesting. And I'm dropping the label. Good start, Julia, good start. This is my modified no frills sweater. I talked about this in detail last week, so I'm not going to talk about it too much this week. But essentially, I just used the no frills pattern by Petite Knit to use for the short rows and increases for this top-down raglan sweater. It's a basic recipe, really. And now I'm just doing my own thing. So this is it. I'm just knitting it out of a merino sock yarn by La Bien-Aimée. Last time I showed this to you, I had just split for the sleeve. So as you can see, I've made quite a bit of progress on the body of the sweater. I'm also throwing in decreases because I want this to be somewhat fitted when it reaches my waist. And the colors are just really, really beautiful. So like I said, nothing huge or incredibly creative to write home about, but I'm looking forward to having this as a finished garment, and the yarn is really lovely. This is of course the logo by La Bien-Aimée, which I got in Paris in the beginning of the year. And I have 3 skeins of their sport weight base, so there is a potential for yarn chicken, but let's not worry about that now, shall we? I am alternating skeins. In fact, I alternated 2 skeins and now I've changed into a 3rd skein, just so I have, if I were to just use 2 skeins throughout the whole sweater, once I use the 3rd skein, there will be a big gap between the colors. So I have used 2 skeins and then paused one, so I can then use that again to alternate on the sleeves, and started my 3rd skein. Not sure if that makes sense, but if you have ever alternated sleeves, alternated skeins, I'm sure you know what I mean. Next up, let's talk about some socks. Again, I haven't really made huge progress on any of these things, so I don't want to talk about them forever. But these are my neon socks, which are so fun. And they are made out of the yarn that I can't pronounce, so I'm going to show you the label instead. And this is in their Mon Sock Heels and Toes set. It's a merino nylon base, and it is called Pygmy Puff is the colorway of the main color, and then Purple Passion was the mini that went with it. So what I'm making is I'm making the Decathlon socks, which is a free pattern on Ravelry, very similar to the Blueberry Waffles. It's just a really fun texture. And I have put in the contrasting heel. This is a Fish Lips Kiss heel knit in garter stitch. So you just use any short row heel to do this, and instead of purling the pearls, you knit the pearl stitches. And that is really the secret behind the garter stitch heel. So yeah, not very much progress, but these are very fun, and I did decide, as you can see, to put in the contrast for the heel and probably the toe, and I think it will be quite fun. So that is one sock project. Of course, all of my socks are usually knit on 2.25 millimeters, and because these ones will be for me most likely, I'm doing 64 stitches. My other sock project, where has it gone? Where is my other sock project? I really thought I brought everything over, but apparently I didn't. You know what? I'm not going to get it. I'm also working on my Bergère de France socks, but I haven't really made that significant progress either, so I'm just going to show them to you next time. But what I do have to show you is, of course, my sweater. My Strange Brew sweater that I talked about again last week. And the Strange Brew is it's a recipe by Tin Can Knits, where they give you all the numbers for different weights of yarn, different sizes, different like top down or top down. Yeah, like a top down sweater construction or a bottom up sweater construction, and you can then design your own sweater. So this is where I am at with my second Strange Brew sweater. So what can you see here? What I have done is I have finished the body of the sweater. So I'm not sure if you can see, but the bottom is finished. I have also added in the bottom ribbing, and the reason why this is looking kind of strange and very hard to show you right now is the fact that I have picked up for my stick stitches, and I am right now working on the first button band. So you can see here, this was knit as a sweater, so I knit the entire thing in the round, and I have now put in my crochet reinforcement, and I will later just cut between those crochet reinforcement stitches and turn this into a cardigan. And I have also, as you can see here, started to pick up the stitches for the button band. So this is the first button band, and once I cut this open, essentially it will be like this, and the part with the crochet reinforcement will just automatically fold to the inside of the cardigan, and I will probably just tack it down a little bit too. So this is where we are with this. Incredibly difficult to show you guys, so I'm very, very sorry about that. But I'm making good progress, aren't I? So I'm very, very happy with this. I need to figure out how big I want the button band to be, but I think I don't want it to be super wide, so I'm probably going to cast that off pretty soon and start the second one. And then really what I want to do is make the cut, because I love steeking. Steeking is so much fun. But I know if I make the cut now, I will never finish the sleeves. So most likely I will then force myself to work on the sleeves first and then leave the fun part, which is the cutting, to the end, because otherwise, like I said, this will never get finished. But very, very excited about this. I think this is going to be a great garment once it's done. And I have already in my mind that I want to be wearing this to Oslo Strikke Festival, so the Oslo Knitting Festival, which I will be going to in the beginning of September. And I just think like this isn't a Norwegian design, but it's got the flea pattern. It's a rustic yarn. It just wants to go to Oslo with me, and I want to be wearing this at the knitting festival. So that is where we are with that. Like I said, Strange Brew pattern by Tin Can Knits. I'm using the decay weight version of the pattern, even though I am theoretically using a fingering weight yarn. This is JC Rennie Shetland Unique yarn. Unique Shetland? Something to that effect. I talked about that last week too. This is a Shetland type yarn, so it does actually not contain any Shetland fiber, which is very sad, but it is a great yarn for just color work and steeking, and I got this from AD Stash. So that is my Tin Can Knits Strange Brew sweater. And then I also cast on a new project because, of course, I had to cast on something new. And I've had this strange need to be working on I wanted to be working on a shawl, preferably one of those asymmetric ones where you just start with very few stitches and then you increase. I just had this urge to cast on something like that and have some super easy garter stitch knitting. So I cast on a shawl that I knit years and years ago when I first started knitting. I actually knit a couple of these. So this is the Diving In Shawl recipe. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and it's essentially just a garter stitch asymmetric shawl with really nice increases and decreases, and the pattern has instructions to also do some stripes, I think, which I've never done. So like I said, I used this when I first started to get into knitting. I think I knit like 3 or 4 of these shawls and gifted them to people. My sister has actually knit one of these as well, and they're just a really fun, easy, super easy project. And I also really like the shape because you don't only just increase, but you also decrease. And it just makes a really good, nice shaped shawl, which I think is very wearable. So I'm knitting this out of some handspun, which is also a good thing because you know how much I love actually using my handspun rather than just having it sit in my stash. So this is actually one of the very first yarns that I spun with my Ashford e-spinner, which I got, I don't know, like 6 weeks ago maybe. This was fiber from Das Mondschaf. It was I know it's got mohair. It was either BFL mohair blend or BFL silk and mohair. I think it was just BFL and mohair. And I spun this into a high twist 2-ply, even though I realized when spinning it that the mohair needed a lot of twist to even be able to be plied and worked with, and it's not actually a very high twist yarn. I think it's just the characteristics of this fiber. Let's see. But it's a really interesting yarn, and I think it turned out really well. And I'm really enjoying just working with it. I wouldn't want to use this for socks because I would have just needed to put more twist into this. But it's knitting up really nicely, and yeah, it's just a very fun project. I'm envisioning this to be a longer term project, so I just want to have something like this to knit on whenever I just want something easy and don't feel like knitting socks. So I feel like having one of these shawls on the needles is always a good idea for me. And right now this is actually I'm sitting at my desk where I also work from a lot. So this is just sitting next to me, and when I have a really long, I don't know, webinar or a phone conference or whatever, I can just knit a couple of stitches. Oh, and I'm also using 3.5mm needles for that, as I do with pretty much everything else besides socks. Alright, that is it for my works in progress. So should we talk about spinning or should we talk about dyeing? Let's do spinning first. So I have 2 exciting things to talk about when it comes to spinning. First of all, I talked last week about the fact that I want to start spinning for a crepe yarn. If you're not a spinner, a crepe yarn is a certain spinning and plying technique. You know how there are, you can do a 2-ply or a 3-ply. And what you do with crepe yarn, without making it too complicated, is you spin 3 singles, but you spin 2 one way. You spin them the S way, and then ply those the other way, so Z-wise, with a super high twist, and then you ply that already plied yarn. So you ply the 2-ply with your remaining single, which are both spun C-wise, and it gives you a 3-ply in the end. I'm not sure if that makes sense. So what I've done is I first spun the 2 S-twist singles. I have then spun them into a 2-ply, which you can see here, and I used double the amount of twist that you would usually use because this is going to be applied again. And I actually spun this on my Bliss wheel, so my non-e-spinner wheel, and I put a ton of twist into this, but A, because I needed to change around my bobbins because I don't have enough bobbins, and B, just to reverse the order of the yarn, I actually then ran it through my e-spinner again, so I just added a tiny bit more twist to it, and now it's on the right bobbin. And I have now started spinning my third single, which is a Z-twist angle or Z-twist single. And then I will again ply the single with this and have a crepe yarn. So anyways, this is where we are with it. How fun are these colors? I think they're just really, really beautiful. I actually spun the first 2 singles both end to end, so they're not barber poling too much because the colors did align, but I'm going to run the leftover single the other way around, so in the end they will be barber poling, and I think it will be really, really fun. So that is my first spinning project and my most exciting one. My second one is a little mini, which in itself isn't very exciting, but I spun it on this, you guys. I don't even know how I thought about this, but the other day I thought I would really, really like to spin on a Turkish spindle. So for those of you who don't know, I used to spin on a spindle, but just a normal wooden non-Turkish spindle. Way, way, way before I got my spinning wheel, and then kind of never looked back once I had my wheel. But these little guys, they're just so much fun. So I decided to get one. This is a 3D printed spindle, so essentially you just have 3 parts and you put them together and it creates a Turkish spindle, and I just thought it would be a really fun thing to work with. I got this one from a Etsy store in Italy, which was called 3DP, so 3 spelled out as a word and then DP. Assumingly that stands for 3D printing. Anyways, you could pick different colors, and I got the mini one, which is very, very tiny. But I just thought it would be a good affordable place to start and see if I even like spinning with this. And just to get some practice in, I got some fiber out of my stash, and this is some Herdwick. It's a very, very rustic fiber. I have this because I have a couple of like breed study samples where you have small amounts of different fibers to just try them. So I just spun it. I spun a 2-ply. So I did both the spinning and the plying on the little spindle. And I also just wanted to see how much fiber I could get onto the spindle. So this is about as much as I could fit comfortably, which is about 15 grams. So yeah, this was my very first try on this little guy. And I'm going to be experimenting some more with this and see if I like it. But so far, it's just been a really fun thing. And this was like, I don't know, $10. So it's a pretty low investment to try. Next up, as I have been teasing, I have been experimenting with dyeing yarn. So ever since, I think I watched, what did I watch? I watched some kind of tutorial on YouTube. I just stumbled across it about dyeing with avocado. And for some reason, I had it in the back of my mind for a while. And then the other day, Kai was eating avocado, and I thought, well, I will just save the pit and the skin and at some point try dyeing with it. So what did I do? Let's show you the yarn very quickly at first, and then I will talk about it in a little bit more detail. So these are the 3 yarns that I dyed. I dyed all of these with 1 single avocado. And literally that's all I used. I used one avocado, water, and heat. No mordants, no crazy ingredients, nothing fancy, just those three things. I'm not a tutorial maker, and I will just state very, very clearly in advance that I am doing this for the very first time. The dyeing this is, and I just did a couple of things to try it out. So this is not a step-by-step instruction of how you're supposed to do it. I'm just going to tell you how I did it. So what I did is like I said, used one avocado. I cleaned the skin, so I got all the green avocado stuff off it. And I also cleaned the pit. I just washed them off, and then what I did, I'm not sure if that was the right thing to do, but I did just dry it for a couple of days, maybe 10 days. I have since read that it's actually better to use them when they're fresh, so it may be better to actually either use them straight away or even freeze them. So if I were to do this again, which I probably will, I will probably try the freezing and just see how that makes a difference. But like I said, mine just kind of dried and got very hard for about 10 days, and then I used them for dyeing. So what did I do? I got 3 skeins of yarn out of my stash. This was all stash yarn, which makes me very happy because the last thing I need to do is buying more yarn. I had 1 skein of, this is just a German 100% non-superwash wool. This is, I just had a white skein from Finkhof Wolle. This is a skein of Jacob's wool. This was from West Yorkshire Spinners, and I believe it's also a non-superwash. And this one, which is still a little bit wet, this is a skein of sock yarn by, I think, Manos del Uruguay. I am 90% sure. This is a wool and nylon blend. And I just had this in my stash. It was this weird sort of beigey color. I got this at a really, really good sale. And I never really liked the color, so I just decided to use that as well. And what I did is I soaked the yarn in water for quite a long time. I didn't soak it in vinegar, which you would probably use if you were dyeing with like fruit dyes, for example. But this time I just used water, just let them sit in the water while I was preparing everything else. And in terms of preparing the avocado, I just threw it in a pot. I added water and I just let it boil. Simple as that. And I took some Instagram story photos. So if you do want to go over to Instagram, you will kind of see the process of what I'm telling you. But essentially, at some point after boiling it, the water was starting to get a little bit yellowish. And I just let it simmer for a while, then got interrupted by Kai breaking our bed and us having to go fix it. And when I came back, I just left the pot on the stove, just turned the heat off. But obviously the water was still very, very hot. So when I came back, just by sitting there, the water had a really nice dark red color, sort of like red wine. And so I just let that cool down a little bit because I didn't want to put, the cold yarn into very hot water because I was very afraid of felting it. So once the water it wasn't cold, but it was cooler, I added the first skein of yarn, which was this one. Just added it in. I know that you could take out the avocado, and that's actually what I've seen people do on other YouTube tutorials, but I just left it in because I wanted a strong color, and I thought if worst comes to worst, some parts of the yarn will be a little bit darker than others, which I totally wouldn't mind. So I just left it in. Put the yarn in. Throughout the whole process, I was very, very careful not to agitate the yarn any more than I had to. So I didn't really stir it. I just made sure it wasn't sticking anywhere. And besides, I just let the yarn do its own thing. And then I just reheated it until it was boiling for just a second, then took it off the heat and just let it sit there. So you're supposed to, as far as I understand, not really let it boil, because the more you boil it, the more like peachy the color will get, or even brown, Whereas if it's just below simmering, it's supposed to get a really nice pinkish color. So I did that, left the yarn in for maybe 45 minutes off the top of my head. I didn't measure anything. This wasn't a very scientific thing. And again, once it was a little bit cooler, I just carefully took the yarn out of the water, rinsed it with water, just plain water. And again, I was quite careful. So, if you take it out of the water and it's very hot and then you rinse it under cold water, again, you will felt it. So I made sure that the water temperature was similar, just rinsed it and hung it out to dry. And when I was rinsing it, there was some dye that came out of the yarn, but it didn't really get any lighter. So I think it was just excess dye that was in the yarn rather than the yarn losing its color. So this was the first skein that I dyed. I think it turned out really, really well. It's probably my favorite. It's just a really nice blush pink. And this was a very bright, almost yellowish white. So I definitely prefer this color. Then, because I just wanted to experiment, I actually saw that the avocado, like the pit, had split just from all the boiling, and the avocado was starting to fall apart a little bit, which I thought was a good sign. So what I did is I actually decided to reboil the water with the avocado just to see if I could get a stronger color out of it. Let it simmer for a bit. The water got very dark again, so there was definitely enough dye to do some more dyeing in the avocado. And then for my second experiment, I put in 2 skeins and I just left them overnight. So again, I put them in, I reheated the water or the dye with the yarn in it. I left it close to boiling. This time I wasn't as careful because I just thought I just want to see what happens. Again, left the avocado in the water and then just let the whole thing sit there until this morning. And it was interesting, even because I left the lid on the pot. It was just a normal metal pot. I left the lid on, and even hours after having boiled it, the water was still very, very warm. So this yarn definitely had more heat throughout the entire process. And this morning I just took them out again. I rinsed them, and this time you could really see that I think I had used up all of the dye. So whereas with the first skein, there was still a lot of red color in the water, this time the color was maybe a little bit brownish, which could have come from also me boiling the crap out of this poor avocado. And you can see that especially this skein, it's quite light. It's a little bit lighter than the first one, and I would compare these two because these are both non-superwash wool yarns, whereas this one is a different base, and also this one wasn't white to start with. So that was quite interesting. What also was really interesting is this time, this one, it has some subtle variegations within the yarn, which you can probably see. So I noticed that there was more avocado on one side of the pot, and I just left it because I thought that would be really interesting, and you can definitely see some lighter and some darker patches in the yarn. So these are the 3 skeins that I got out of it. And you know what? I'm really excited about this. I feel like I will definitely be trying this again and trying to use more avocado in the future and possibly fresher avocado to see if I can even get stronger colors in these. But I really, really like my result. And yeah, this was just a very fun thing to do. You can do it in the kitchen because there's no chemicals involved. There's nothing toxic involved. It is literally just water and avocado, which I think in itself is just really, really great. So I've been getting a ton of questions over on Instagram. So no, I did not add any mordant. I didn't add anything to preserve the color. You don't really need to do that with avocado because there is a chemical called tannin in the pit. So that actually adds as a mordant, and so just by using at least 1 pit, that will ensure that the dye will actually stay on the yarn and make it color fast. What else? Like I said, I really just experimented, so I just decided to see how it goes. And I mean, all of this yarn was stash yarn. I didn't want to ruin it, of course, but I wasn't very precious about it either. Especially with my second go around, I Actually, it was quite rough with this poor skein, and I thought I had felted it, but I think it's fine. And yeah, it turned out pretty well. I'm very happy with the results. It was a fun activity to do on the weekend, and I think it would also be a fun activity for people who just want to try their hand at dyeing yarn without making an investment. Like, you don't need to buy any dyes. You don't need fancy equipment. You can just use your kitchen equipment. You don't need to wear a face mask, and you could also, of course, do this with kids as long as you're careful, I guess, with the heat and stuff, because like I said, there's no dangerous dye powder or anything that you could inhale and possibly hurt yourself or others with. So very, very happy with these. I can't wait to knit them up. I actually have some very dark yarn from this exact same base, and I think combining that would be really, really nice. And I also have, I think, 2 or 3 skeins of a dark gray Jacob that would go with this. So I think I will use them in the future for color work, and I think they will be very nice. So that was my avocado dye experiment. I hope that was somewhat interesting to you, and like I said, there are plenty of photos and comments of me doing it on Instagram. So if you want to just pop over there, I'm the Happy Knitting Podcast over there, and you will be able to find some more information about that. Lastly, let's talk about some acquisitions. So first up, I mentioned last week that on our trip I found this amazing fiber, and it was from a mill that is close to here. It's a mill called Schafhofhöfer. Schafwollehöfer. Höfer is definitely the name, and it's a very local, regional place. It's near Chiemsee, it's near Bad Aibling, and they seem to be selling throughout different like small scale sellers within Germany. And I just went onto their website and I ordered some yarn of them just via email. So this is probably not interesting to anyone international because I don't even know. This is a very local thing. But if you're in Germany, Schafwollehöfer, they have really, really nice yarn. So they just have one kind of yarn, which I think this is about a DK weight. I have a feeling this is about 200 or maybe 220 grams of yarn. But this is literally how you get it. So it doesn't have labels. Like, I think this is more, they just sell a couple of different wool products for different uses. But yeah, I got a couple of skeins, ordered them via email, and they did actually arrive, and they're really nice yarn. I think it's just a very nice woolen spun yarn. Looks like a 2-ply to me, and yeah, I'm very, very happy with that. Sorry, I can't really give you much more information about that, but that's the way it is. Also, yesterday was Worldwide Knit in Public Day, which was so fun, and together with my friend Marion, we went to Rauwerk, which is a local yarn store here in Munich. I actually got a free tote, which is amazing, so this is it. It was really fun. They had the seats outside and snacks, and we just hung out and knit for a while. And of course, I had to pick up some yarn. So I got 2 things. First of all, I got this yarn from Rosa Pomar, which is a Norwegian rubbish. This is a Portuguese yarn brand, which, by the way, they have the cutest labels. How cute is that? So this yarn and this yarn company is, like I said, from Portugal, and they are known for making very eco-friendly and some parts even recycled yarns. They are famous for their non-superwash, non-nylon sock yarn, which I have some in my stash, but I've actually not had the time to try it. And I've never seen this base of theirs, which is called Vovo, and this is just a 100% wool, about a DK, maybe sport weight. And a woman at the store, she had the most amazing sweater knit in this yarn, and I had this strong color preference towards these kind of tones yesterday. Like, every single skein that I picked up in different qualities, this color was just calling my name yesterday. So I got myself a sweater's quantity of this, and I think it's going to be a very nice sweater. And then I was already paying and walked past this shawl that they had knit, and it was just this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful shawl out of a yarn that I've seen before, but that had never really called me and never really struck my fancy. But seeing a beautiful Lacey shawl, I was like, okay, whatever that yarn is, can I please have it and buy it? And I don't care. And the yarn that I'm talking about is this yarn. This is Garthenor in their #1 organic Shetland wool. So this is an organic Shetland yarn from the UK. Sourced, scoured, and spun in the UK, produced to global organic textile standards. And this is a lace weight single yarn in the shade Musket. And this is a beautiful yarn, and they had this Lacey Shawl, I think it was a pattern by Isabel Kremer, which the owner had actually adapted to use with this lighter yarn. And it's just glorious. They had a couple of different natural shades of this yarn, but like I said, I saw this shawl and I just wanted to have exactly that. So I got 3 skeins of this, and these are 350 meters per 50 grams, so I probably have way too much for what I want to make. But this yarn was just amazing, and it just wanted to live with me, and so it did. So those are my acquisitions, and like I said, I got this lovely tote as a gift, which is amazing. And how cute is the logo? I just love this logo. And that is it for my acquisitions, which is a lot, admittedly. So yeah, what else is there to talk about? Oslo Knitting Festival. I will be going, and I'm so excited. We booked our tickets yesterday. So I will be going back to Oslo with my lovely friend Marion. We will probably be at the festival definitely on a Saturday and maybe on the Friday night, depending on whether it's worth it, whether we get tickets. We haven't really decided yet. I also, because I loved Oslo and you know my love for Pickles yarn, I definitely want to go back to Pickles, which is a yarn store in Oslo, and possibly hit some other yarn stores as well. So I'm very, very, very excited about it. This is definitely also the biggest yarn festival that I've gone to. So I'm of course interested if any of you guys are going. I would love to meet you. And if there is interest, we could even do some kind of informal podcast meetup. Like, I would totally be up to doing that if you guys are keen. So please do let me know through Instagram or through the comments or wherever you want, really. If you're going, what your plans are, if there are knit nights that cannot be missed. Like, we're there to do all the knitting, and it would be lovely to see you. Besides that, this weekend has been a big holiday prep weekend because there are a couple of trips that I and both me alone as well as me and Kai, that was complicated. There are a couple of trips that we want to make. So I'm going to Oslo with my friend Marion. I also am planning a summer holiday with my husband Kai. And today I actually managed to book all of those trips. So I feel very relieved now, because it's so fun when you know you have a holiday coming up, and usually just sitting down and planning it and booking flights is definitely the hardest part for me. So we did that today, and now I'm very happy to just sit and knit and relax and not have to worry about that anymore. Besides that, I think there's not that much else to talk to you guys about. As you can see, I've been definitely very, very inspired and motivated to do all the crafts. I just wish I had more time for them, but this is a long weekend or a bank holiday weekend, because tomorrow is, I don't know how you call it, Pentecost Monday. It's a public holiday. So now that I have, done all the yarny things, I've planned all the things that need to be planned, I've recorded a podcast, I'm really happy to just spend the rest of today and also tomorrow just doing nothing except knitting, enjoying the beautiful weather, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So I hope I haven't forgotten anything. If I have, I'm sorry. If this was all over the place, again, I'm sorry. life tends to be complicated. And for me, whenever I think a lot of things are happening at the same time, that definitely reflects on the podcast. But, anyways, I really hope that you will have enjoyed this show. Of course, I'm always happy to hear from you guys through Instagram, through Ravelry. Please feel free to join us over there in the group. As usual, I don't have any show notes, but I have pretty detailed project pages. So if you want to see anything or look up anything that I talked about in terms of my projects, such as needle sizes, yarns, colorways, please feel free to just go over to my Ravelry pages and you should find all the information there, and I will link to that right underneath this video. So thank you so much for watching today. I hope that you liked it, as I already said, because apparently I'm saying everything 3 times now. I will see you probably next week. Oh no, I'm not going to see you next week. I will see you soon, whenever that may be. And until then, it's always great to catch up with me through Instagram because I am most active over there. Until I see you again, have a great weekend, have a good week. I hope you enjoy your knitting, and I will see you very soon. Bye!